Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, dude that likes history stuff, guy who reads too much, if there is such a thing, person with a cool hat, which I just recognized that I don't have sitting here with me, which is a fatal flaw in my planning. How's it going, Fid? And welcome to my beautiful wife, Brittany, whose birthday is today. So, happy birthday, dearest. Hope it's been a good one. So, welcome everybody. Just toss it. Toss it. My wife has just delivered the adventure hat to me. Oh, there we are. So, just in case we have an adventure hat summoning, it will be nigh on hand and we won't have to wait. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope that the chaos of the world surrounding us has not overwhelmed anybody. It can be crazy out there, my friends, but remember, the only thing that defeats craziness is understanding, empathy, and attempts to try to get people to listen to reason, which is hard to do. It's not always the easiest thing in the world to do. Sometimes you just want to scream at people, right? I know I've been there. It's pretty much what teaching is like sometimes. Yeah, good luck with that. Well, you got to do what you got to do, right? I've got the window open here just a little bit. There is a bit of a rain front coming through, and I really enjoy the sound of rain. It's a very soothing sound to me, and I thought that if that kicked in the background, that might be a little bit of ambient noise to help us and our discussion tonight. For those of you who are not familiar, if you're here for the first time, or if you just want to be reminded, the stream's purpose here is for us to talk about history. And it is a conversation, it's not a lecture. Sometimes it turns into me talking a lot, but that's okay. If you just want to lurk, you do your thing. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free. If I fall asleep, Brittany will come back and wake me up. Thanks, dear. I firmly believe that history is not a boring subject. It's not a subject that should be passed over. It is a vital part of who we are. And I think that's unfortunately forgotten too many times in education in the United States and around the world today. So I have made this channel to hopefully reach out, get a little bit more people involved, spread a little history, spread a little love, be cool, chill out, have a good time, make some bad puns, explain the bad puns. Hey, Galanuva, how's it going, man? I am on the back end of a really, really horrible allergy attack. I did some yard work over the weekend, and it is still kind of coming at me. Yeah, do a little dance. Get down tonight. I don't know if anybody wants to see me dance. And I would be afraid of dancing on stream for the fear of people clipping that and then circulating that around the internet. I don't know if I would ever live that down. They all might go viral. Goofy white dude dances. It might be the next thing that gets everybody around, and I could be a multimillionaire. Then I could stream every night, right? I don't know if everybody would be interested in history every night. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping as always. If you're interested, you can send me an email. My email address is mckinnistravels@gmail.com. If you see anything that you are interested in knowing more about, if you think I would appreciate it, or if you just want to send me an email and tell me how great the stream is, or how horrible the stream is, or how I can do things better, you feel free to message. Also, you can follow me on social media at somehistoryguy, Instagram and Twitter. Super not political, very laid back, mostly just sharing facts and pictures and stuff like that. So don't fear that you are going to go follow some flame war junkie that gets everybody upset and riled. I tend to do enough of that without even trying. History is, of course, a topic that is close to some people, so I'll remind everybody that this is a comfortable place, and we're here to have discussions, and we're here to make connections with people around the world. We have people from all over the globe that come by and spend time with us, and we want to remember that we are all so much more alike than we are different. And for us to fix a lot of problems in the world that we have right now, we need to focus on how we are the same, stuff that we want that's the same. And that's true for us understanding history as well. We have to remember that people back in the past are also people. And they want things, and they want a lot of the same things that we do. They want peace. They want to take care of their kids. They want to provide a future for their family. They want to go to sleep safe and wake up and eat and put food in their stomach. We just have a little bit of a different way of approaching those problems today because of all of our modern conveniences. But people in the past aren't so different than we are, right? So tonight we are on a viewer request episode. So every other Tuesday or Tuesdays as I have time, we do viewer request episodes. These are episodes chosen by the viewers. We will have another poll at the end of the stream tonight where our viewers will get to select from suggestions that they come up with for the next viewer request topic. So tonight's topic is the Inca, and the title tonight recalls a very old song. I've been on a bit of an old song kick for the last few. Titles always try to be punny or some sort of pop cultural reference. Tonight's is Do That Quipu That You Do So Well. I hope somebody gets that. I worry a little bit about getting really old music that might be outside of people's wheelhouse. So if you get that reference there, just let me know in the chat. I might need to move my pop cultural references up to actually modern pop culture instead of pop culture from the 50s and the 60s. I have a bit of an affinity for music, by the way. Like it quite a bit. All right, so before we launch off again, make sure that you are keeping up with your adventure points under the chat. Hey, Superb, how's it going? Under the chat, you'll see a little picture of the adventure hat here and some points beside it. You can use those points to redeem various history-related and goofy things that we can do in the chat here. So if you want to spend any of those, feel free to do so whenever you are ready. Otherwise, let's kind of move on into the topic. The topic is, again, the Inca, one of the large civilizations of what we call pre-Columbian, meaning before Christopher Columbus showed up here, pre-Columbian America. And the Incan Empire is actually the largest one by land mass. It is incredibly large, and we'll talk about its expansion and some of the key leaders and a lot of the developments tonight. We'll also talk about Incan culture. You'll figure out exactly what Quipu is. It's not just a random word that rhymes with voodoo that I could sneak easily into the song. Doing good here. Just had a nap. Managed to wake up. Awesome. Didn't do the nap today. I didn't sleep so great last night. But that's probably because I couldn't breathe. Again, allergies are kind of kicking my tail. But cheers. So, glad everybody's here. Let's talk about the Inca. So, first off, we need to do a little bit of the geography. I know this is everybody's favorite part. The Inca live in... Hey, Kelly. Or lived, rather, and their descendants still live in South America. Hey, KP. And we're going to be looking specifically at a few of the countries here tonight in what we call the Andeans. Hey, Gene, how's it going, man? I think you might like this one. So we're looking at a few different countries here. The sort of heartland, if we will, of the Inca Empire is going to be in this country, Peru, especially down in the kind of southern region, but later they're going to expand up into what is today Ecuador. Also, large populations of Inca people here in Bolivia. Also, this country here, Chile, and then just a little bit over here in this corner of what is today Argentina. But the Inca Empire is going to stretch all the way up here from Ecuador down into Argentina. It's a very, very long empire, and it incorporates a lot of these very mountainous areas. And those mountains are actually going to be pretty key to a lot of the lifestyle choices that the Inca people make. I just realized you said hola instead of holla. Gene, I read that as holla, like hey. Hola, ¿qué tal, mi amigo? I forgot that I should address Spanish speakers with Spanish. Mi malo, lo siento. Okay, so who are these people? Well, one neat thing about the larger sort of pan-Andean cultures, and when I say Andean cultures here, I'm using the word Andean from Andes Mountains. The Andes are that big chain that stretch all the way from here all the way down the backside of South America. So one neat thing about the Andean cultures is that they are one of the very, very few types of cultures that anthropologists title pristine. Pristine, like new and untouched. But anthropologists use this term pristine to mean that these cultures both developed and rose without any outside interference. Good mints as well. They are good mints, and they remind me of being young and eating way too many of them at one time. But a pristine culture, according to anthropologists and historians, are cultures that arose without any sort of outside influence. So the cultures of the Andean region are going to sort of develop in a bubble. And that's going to make them quite unique, because without any sort of external influence for thousands of years, they're going to come up with very unique solutions to sort of everyday problems that we might experience as we are going along. So that's something to keep in mind when we're talking about all of these Andean cultures. And another thing that we have to understand about the Inca people is that the Incan Empire, as we sort of refer to it, is actually a very short-lived thing. There were people living in the Andean region going all the way back to somewhere around 16,000 BC, and we start seeing actual individual unique physical cultures somewhere around 4,000 BC. And when I say physical culture, what I mean again are things like pieces of pottery or clothing or specific tools that identify that we have an advanced culture here, not just a lot of sort of very, very primitive hunter-gatherers. The first really big identifiable civilizations that we're going to see is what's called the Norte Chico civilization. The Norte Chico are going to be uniquely identifiable somewhere around 3700 BC, so they're very, very early, and they last up until about 1800 BC. And these are going to be the people that come up with a lot of the sort of foundational building blocks of the Andean cultures. Okay, I have the stream going on my PC now. Got to do some work while I listen. Go for it. Don't knock hunter-gatherers. Clovis and Folsom are pretty awesome. No. I don't knock hunter-gatherers at all. I actually quite love me some hunter-gatherers. The distinguishing feature here that I'm talking about is we have transitioned from hunter-gatherers to semi-sedentary lifestyle. That's all that I was going for there, Gene. I promise I wasn't knocking hunter-gatherers. I would actually love to go out to the southwest and do some digging and find some Clovis stuff. Remember, he said once we started farming, everything went to hell. Well, it didn't necessarily go to hell, but it certainly introduced a lot of problems that didn't exist prior. Stuff like social structures and warfare and taking advantage of large amounts of people through propaganda. And yeah, I mean, civilization has its ups. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to a light box to people that are hundreds of miles away from me over magical electrical signals, and that is amazing. But we also have to deal with war and poverty and class structure and systemic racism. So there are trades off for civilization. I would rather live in civilization than not, but I think that civilization is not perfect. We can fix a lot of the problems that we have right now. But just a little bit more empathy, right? Just a little bit more empathy, a little bit more understanding. I think that we'd be okay. So who are these Norte Chico people? Well, they're going to be some of the first people that show some form of early government. We know that they have some form of early government because of the structures that they left behind. They have big earthenwork mounds. They're also going to be some of the first people that figure out how to irrigate. And irrigation in the mountains is actually a really, really tricky thing to accomplish because, well, as you know, water's going to fall on the mountain and then it's going to run down the side. But one thing that you can do is actually dig out catch basins and channels so that when the water falls, you can sort of divert that into places to hold that water until you need it for crops or to go ahead and irrigate your fields. They're also going to be responsible for llama domestication. The pack animal of the Andean mountains is going to be the llama. Now, llamas are a little bit different. Also later, the alpaca, to a certain extent. So llamas and alpacas are a little bit different than what you might consider like horses because you don't ride a llama or an alpaca usually. They're not necessarily transportation animals. They're more like burden-carrying animals. You're also not usually going to see them used in sort of farming implementations like an ox might pull a plow. They're mostly just going to be lugging your stuff around and chewing cuds and spitting at you, right? I just realized that I could have made a very, perhaps much more culturally appropriate pun with Napoleon Dynamite and Tina. So maybe I should have done that instead of do that Quipu that you do so well. I still haven't seen anybody refer to knowing that one, so I think I may have struck out with that attempt there. So the Norte Chico are going to be a pretty important culture for quite some time. They're not going to be the only culture that's around at the time. There are also going to be several others. Another culture called the Nazca are actually quite interesting, mostly because of the sort of large-scale relics that they left behind. So if we go down here to southern Peru, there are actually quite a few areas that are more or less kind of a desert. And if we look at some of these deserts, you can actually find, and of course this is not going to show these to me, I probably should have pinned them myself prior to the channel starting. Oh man, now I'm feeling silly. Maybe I should have pulled a picture of these. Anyway, if you are more prepared than I am and spend a little bit of time looking on Google, you can find pictures of these really great... there's one. These really interesting lines that are built into the plain of the region by the Nazca people. And this is one of the greatest aliens things ever, because people say, like, oh, this is clearly a runway for alien spaceships. Obviously, that's what they're here for. There's also a spider that's very famous, and a guy that's waving, and a hummingbird, and I can't find any of them, and I feel kind of silly that I should have put pins on there. There are, I am certain. Let me go back over here. They're fairly large, though, so that's why I was hoping I'd be able to kind of pick them out. Let me look up at Linnaeus de Nazca. I don't want to go back over here. That's going to be a place for me to go get on an airplane and fly over them. Anyway, Nazca lines, they're really neat. They're not necessarily the topic of the discussion tonight, so I won't linger here. Go Google those after the show. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Gene. Gene to the rescue. Oh yeah, there's it. That's one of the better ones. Big hummingbird. Gene's just... Do you have these on like speed dial? Gene, by the way, quite familiar with South and Central American cultures, very much helping. Yeah, and see, that's the thing about it. We really don't even know how exactly they planned a lot of this stuff. There's all sorts of crazy theories. Of course, one of them is absolutely the aliens, and the other one is that they had built these hot air balloons out of canoes and skins and stuff. There's all sorts of fun little theories. Really neat kind of things, though. But these people existed prior to the Inca, but they're definitely one of the things that I'd like to go see if I were in Peru. So that's NAZCA, by the way. There's another culture that's going to be kind of right before the... I'm spelling this horribly. Tiwanaku. I'm trying to talk and type at the same time, and I can't. So the Tiwanaku here people are going to show up around 100 AD and last until about, I'm sorry, not 100 AD, about 550 AD and last until about 1100. These are going to be south of what we might consider the kind of main region of the Inca at the time. And they are around this big lake right here called Lake Titicaca, which is partially in Peru and partially in Brazil. And this lake is actually really important to a lot of the mythology of these Indian people. A lot of people in the region consider this the birthplace of their gods. The sort of creator god, this guy named Viracocha, was sort of born in the lake and came out of the lake and then created everything. A bunch of bored teens. Hey man, you want to go make a monkey in the desert? So Lake Titicaca is very important. The Tiwanaku people are going to be centered around this region, in mostly the Bolivia side. There's going to be another culture that's around right before the Nazca called the Wari, and I'm missing that Wari. These are going to be a little bit more north, and the Wari and the Tiwanaku are going to be around at the same time, and they're actually going to border each other's territory, but they're not necessarily going to be at war with each other. It's fun to learn more about. The Inca were featured in one of the too short, in your humble opinion, cultural readings in Spanish 101. Yeah, the language that these people spoke isn't Spanish, of course. They had their own language called Quechua, which is still spoken by hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people and now my neighbors are mowing their lawn. Can anybody hear the lawn mowing? Is that a distraction? Who mows their lawn at 6:30 at night? If that becomes a thing... Okay, you can't hear anything. Well, that's good. I can hear it, and it's annoying me. It's just a low hum. Maybe if I turn my mic, it'll cut some of that out. Who cuts their yard at 6:30? Okay. All right, so Quechua is the language that most of these people are speaking at the time, and still spoken by a lot of people today, especially the more rural people that are up in the Andean mountains, or the Andes. So they didn't, of course, get Spanish until the Spanish showed up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we have all these other cultures that are existing and developing really cool stuff and building cities and doing really big construction projects. So the Inca did not sort of arise out of nothing. They're actually not even going to start as this big regional power. They're going to start as a smaller kingdom at a place called Cuzco, which is still a modern city. And there's going to be a kingdom that starts at Cuzco, and it's founded by this dude named Manco Capac. And unfortunately, let me see. People who don't want to die of heat stroke mow their lawn in 1830. I guess it was 92 today. Kronk pulled the lever. Okay, let's look at some pictures. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of like what we might consider images of these rulers made by the people that are still around. Part of this is just because they didn't necessarily have what we would consider like a big kind of thriving statuary market in the Inca world. And the art that they did was actually quite beautiful. And we have lots of examples of things like decorated patterns, especially geometric patterns, and pottery that are shaped like different animals and things of that nature. But when it comes to full-size statues or busts or things like that, we really don't have a lot of images of the people. So we have to kind of go based on what exists. And this is a statue of Manco Capac that is very, very modern, and he almost certainly didn't look like this, but the people who made the statue tried to make it look appropriate for what somebody that was the ruler of the kingdom of Cusco would have dressed like. Oh, wow. Gino, I will definitely check that video out after the stream. I don't know what would happen on my computer right now if I tried to open a YouTube video. I haven't ever actually tried to do that on stream before, but I will definitely give that a look. One of my friends, who's a mod in the stream, Mac in a Lab Coat, has spent lots of time down in Peru and has convinced me about a bajillion times or to go down into Peru with him. I really do want to. The problem right now, of course, is COVID, and another problem is Peru is a lot larger than it looks. But what I'm trying to get at is, I think if I'm not wrong, he has at least been in contact with people that are dun, 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 dun. Anyway, what I was trying to get at is that I think my friend Mac in a Lab Coat has been in touch with people that speak Quechua. Hello, Shane Lager here. What's your topic today, and when did you start? We are covering the Inca people today, and we started about 30 minutes ago. So this is supposed to be Manco Capac, and again, this is a modern-day representation of him. So I don't know what we miss. I would love to see pictures of this person in, what we might consider more traditional pictures, but we don't really have a lot of old statuary. So anyway, who is Manco Capac? Well, it's actually sort of hard to prize apart the myth and the fact from this guy. He pretty clearly was the founder of this kingdom of Cusco, and he is going to be a very important figure. He's seen sort of as one of the founders of the modern-day states of Peru, and he's going to be the first person that holds the title Sapa Inca. This title is going to be very important because this designates you as the son of Inti. Inti being their god of the sun. Sapa Inca is going to be their title for their king and later their emperor. And Manco Capac is going to be the first person that uses this. But over time, it's pretty clear that a lot of myth sort of gets attached to both Manco Capac and his wife, who is another figure that sort of takes on larger-than-life status. And there's a lot of stories about how they were called out by the gods, and they brought shelter to the people, and they gave them culture and cities, which we know from all of the other civilizations that existed prior to these guys that there was other stuff going on. So it's not like they truly created civilization. Now, what they may have done, and what had been the sort of grain of truth about this particular story, is that they did found a very successful dynasty of rulers. And that's something that we don't necessarily see in a lot of the other kingdoms around the region. There's a lot of fighting in the Andean world. And part of this is because of the fact that, again, we're living in the mountains. And it's very hard in certain regions to get enough food for your population, especially the populations that are growing. So there's going to be a lot of competition for natural resources. And this makes living in a stable dynastic state a little bit harder. Because if everybody's trying to raid you and kill you and everybody's trying to take over, you can see how this is just a more difficult kind of thing here. But Manco Capac is going to be the founder of this dynasty. His dynasty is called the Hurin dynasty, Hurin. And there are going to be several dynastic leaders after him that are in his family that are also kings of Cusco. Dun, 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 dun. I'm missing a lot of the conversation here. I'm sorry. He isn't kidding. His laptop is at its limit doing Twitch alone. Yes, it is. So I really don't know what would happen if I tried to run YouTube at the same time. Let me guess. We're about to go over a huge waterfall. Yep, sharp rocks at the bottom. What are the resources that informed us about Incan history, inscriptions, Spanish recorded oral traditions? So the Inca didn't actually have a written language as we know it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We do know quite a bit from archaeological remains, and the Spanish actually did write down quite a bit of stuff. One of the things that the Spanish succeeded doing here that they didn't do necessarily so well. Well, I should say, first off, let's remember that the Spanish came in and killed millions of these people, and they're not the good guys in the story. But they did manage to spend quite a bit of time recording both myths and history of these peoples. There are several different writing collections that came out in the 1600s that are pretty important, that give us a lot of information about these guys. Another great video I shot in Chinchero, area in Peru, is considered to be a building in Ishwara. Women work at alpaca wool market and sing traditional songs for tourists when they leave. Nice. Ignore me, just quoting Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, it's okay. It's a very funny movie. I quite like it myself. So, oh, you guys. So Manco Capac's family line is going to continue ruling the Kingdom of Cusco for around 230 or 240 years. They're going to be rather successful. They expand their boundaries quite a bit. They move down south from Cusco into what is modern-day Bolivia, especially the region right around Lake Titicaca. They're going to encounter several of the large cities there and start folding those cities into the larger Kingdom of Cusco. But it's not going to be until around the early 1400s that we really can start calling these leaders an empire, right? So an empire's designation is different than a kingdom, because a kingdom is just one group of people ruling itself. An empire is one group of people ruling multiple other groups of people, right? So for the majority of the period of time that we've talked about so far, we're talking about Kingdom of Cusco as being the largest sort of polity in the region. Did they kill them systematically and collectively, or indirectly through diseases and stuff? Both. You know, the poison for Cusco, the poison... Okay, ha ha ha, guys. I feel like we're just... I have asked for this. I let you all pick, and I see the purpose now. The purpose wasn't to learn about the Inca. The purpose was just to purely quote Emperor's New Groove for the entire time. Um, cool. So, again, we're going to see these people expand. The ruling family of the Kingdom of Cuzco is going to change over from the Huron line into another royal family, or another noble family called the Hanan line. And that's going to happen right around the 1350s. But by the early 1400s, we see the first guy who's going to be a big actual emperor. And his name is Viracocha, Viracocha Inca. And he rules from about 1410 to 1438. And he's going to lay the groundwork for what his son goes on to do, which is really rapidly expand the empire. Let's see, I'm missing chat. Neolithic Empire, since they lacked a written language. Writing isn't necessarily Neolithic, right? So if you do anything with metal, you're clearly not Lithic era. Because lithic is stone. So this is not a Neolithic necessarily. They do lack a written syllabic alphabet thing, but they have a system of writing. We'll talk about it a little bit later. European disease ravaged Incas for the Congress. Yes. For the record, I didn't participate in the vote. I'm just opportunistic. Oh, you guys. Yes, and there is a big civil war. Viracocha in my royal cultural readings, as well as his chosen wife, the Koya. Yeah. So Koya is kind of a title for the female ruler. We'll talk about the culture a little bit more, but men and women in the Inca world have a lot of similarities when it comes to being able to inherit stuff. There is a pretty clear delineation that men should be the ruler, but in society they're actually quite a bit more harmonious than a lot of ancient cultures between the genders here. And Koya is sort of the ruling female who has a lot of importance, and the chosen wife, if you will, of the Sapa Inca. I think diseases play the biggest role. Pizarro and his comrades gang of some hundreds, and Pizarro and his gang had thousands, and again, guns. Guns are big things. If you have a cannon and you're trying to fight me with bows and arrows, I'm going to win that battle. Okay, so who is Viracocha Inca? Well, so to begin with, he's a leader. He's the king of the empire, or the kingdom of Cuzco, and he's got some problems kind of going on as you're expanding. You're having internal issues because there's more money coming in, there's more power, people want this. You have lots of sons, and of course everybody wants to take over next. But what he's going to do is sort of task everybody outward. He's going to solve a lot of these dynastic problems by putting people's minds towards expansion. And this guy's going to be big on the expansion. And when he's expanding, he's going to sort of take on a different role. Now, the Kingdom of Cuzco had fought with the people around them quite a bit. Again, there's a lot of fighting in the Andes, but a lot of the fighting tended to be sort of organized raid parties where I would gang up, a couple thousand of my guys, and we'd go over to your city and we would wreck your city and steal all the cool stuff, and then we'd go back to our place. We're not going there to dominate you governmentally or militarily. Viracocha Inca is going to change that. He wants to expand the number of people under his power, and he wants to create a strong regional state. And he's going to be successful. He's going to be able to beat some of these people, incorporate them into his world, and he's also going to be able to enforce from them tribute. And tribute in the Inca world is a little bit different. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we start really, really expanding, but it's not necessarily just give me your money and your cool stuff. It's also, you have to come fight for me and you have to show up to work when I want you to. But Viracocha Inca is going to draw a lot of attention with his movements, especially down in the south. And there's going to be a period of time where he and some of his sons are going to be, very awkward position. They had just finished up a military campaign. They had sort of been celebrating this big campaign, and this other group of people called the Chanca are going to invade the kingdom of Cusco. And Viracocha Inca is going to take some of his sons and it's like, okay, we've got to abandon the capital. We've got to abandon Cusco. We need to run south where we have more of our military. But one of his sons is going to refuse. And he does this based on a couple of important reasons. Number one, this particular son, who's not supposed to be the one that is in charge. He's not like the chosen heir. He's going to say, we can't leave our temples to these foreigners, right? This would be like surrendering the home of our gods to these invaders. And of course, this is going to be highly propagandized after the fact. This is almost certainly a story that has grown over time. But Viracocha Inca is going to watch as his non-chosen son manages to save the kingdom by fighting off the Chanca. And that's pretty interesting stuff. And this is going to be how this guy manages to take over. I'm missing a lot of chat. If I miss any questions, by the way, either just put them back in the chat again, or if one of my mods would poke at me and say, hey, you missed a question. Chosen wife the Koya. Pizarro benefited from the writings of Cortez. Right. Every large empire has enemies on their borders. If you can get away with your ally, yes. The Spanish divide and conquer method. Kind of. They mostly took advantage of a situation, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll get to the Spanish in a bit. But still give us your money and cool stuff. We still want that too. Not necessarily, KP. The tribute system in the Inca world is pretty interesting. So mostly Peru, but also Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina. There's some evidence that they tried to move over into the Amazon River Basin in Brazil, but that apparently did not go very well for them. There's a lot of native people there that gave them some trouble. So when Viracocha Inca dies in 1438, his son Pachacuti is going to take over. And you go, how great of a name is Pachacuti? I think it's a great name. Again, we have stream. I'm supposed to be going to images here, not intro. That other I word. So this guy is Pachacuti. And again, this is another modern statue. This is representing Pachacuti, who is another one of these, another one of the people that's considered sort of founder of the Peruvian state. This statue is pretty famous, so if you go hang out in Peru, this is a big tourist destination. It's on top of a really big pillar. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, pro streamer. Hey, Vanities. So Pachacuti is a really important guy because his world is going to be very different than his predecessors, because he is going to be the actual first full-out emperor. He's going to take it upon himself to expand the kingdom of Cusco's boundaries, and he's going to be... so his father had conquered some foreign people, but Pachacuti is going to be the guy that really puts the empire together. His name, by the way, is not his birth name. Pachacuti is sort of a nickname, and it means shaker of the earth, which is pretty great. That's like, if your nickname was Earthshaker, that's a great nickname, because he is going to be seen as shaking the foundations of the Andean peoples. So Pachacuti is, again, he's not supposed to be the guy that originally was going to take over. He gains popularity and influence by protecting the people from the Chanca's invasion. And he's going to be the guy that sort of puts them on the road to rapid, massive expansion. I was told by my guide in Cusco that whenever the Incas contacted another group of their expansion, they set up an exchange of knowledge. Traded engineers, doctors, and scientists, and getting in contact with the Incas was a win-win and contributed to the Incas' rapid rise and influence over a short period of time. Absolutely. That's mostly going to be under the second of the Inca emperors, Topa Inca Yucam. I try to say these names like I know them like off the top of my head, and I do, but I can't say them all the time. Yupanqui. Topa Inca Yupanqui. Bleh. You say that 4 times fast. Anyway, his guy, this is Pachacuti's son. We'll talk about him in just a second. So Pachacuti is going to take the throne, and then the Chanca are going to show back up. And Pachacuti is going to not only defeat them, but kind of follow them home and defeat the Chanca, and then subjugate them. So not only has he now defeated the kind of big bad guys, he has incorporated their larger world into his own kingdom. Incan language, yes, Quechua. It's probably a little bit variated because of the influence of Spanish, but it's a pretty unique, independent, neat little language. I'd love to learn more of it, but I don't know how much use it would be. I try to prioritize stuff, and I'm not trying to say it's a useless language, but if I'm going to learn another language and put a lot of influence in it, I need it to be more useful if I'm going to travel along the rest of the world. So, big languages like Arabic or Mandarin, or getting better at French, that kind of stuff. So, Pachacuti, big guy, beats the Chanca, sets up the first real big empire, and he's going to decide that he likes this expansion. And he's going to be a very warlike leader. And there's going to be another kingdom that he's going to target just south of Cusco. That's called the Colla, which is, well, you can't see it, but it's Colla, Colla. So these people you can see here, so this little mark right here, if I zoom in a little bit, is Lake Titicaca right here. So this is going to be mostly down in what is today Bolivia here, and then Chile, and then part of Argentina. The Colla Kingdom was quite large. It had a fairly high population. It was going to be a fairly rich civilization. This is, I guess what we might say to a certain extent, sort of the successor state of the Tiwanaku culture. There's a little bit of a gap between these two periods of time, but it's similar to that older culture that we talked about. Right? Okay, I'm clicking the wrong buttons and things are not happening the right way. I am so pro streamer right now. Hey, welcome back. There we go. All right, so Pachacuti's a pretty big dude. He's pretty important, one of the bigger leaders, and I'm losing. Goodness gracious, lots of chat tonight. I like it. Is it a minority in Peru? Yeah, but it's kind of neat. There's a lot of people there that are bilingual, and a lot of people still speak Quechua, and there are, like I said, probably thousands of people you may have missed that at the beginning that still speak Quechua. There's a surprising amount of native languages still in use today. Okay, so Gene's already got me there. Can't change a lot. Spanish, yeah. All languages should be revived as long as they're recorded. Must be revived. Yep, I like it. I don't know about revived. People are who they are in the present. It isn't part of necessarily bad. Current speakers need to be empowered and respected. Yeah. That's a good point. People held their identity but lost their language. Yeah, I'm with you. I can see both sides of that. I get sad when languages die. Languages tell stories of people. I don't know if we should force people to speak languages. I think that's probably a bad thing. But preserving languages, I think, is a great thing. But that's my opinion. So the fight with the Colla Kingdom to the south is going to be really, really brutal. And Pachacuti is going to bring a lot of guys with him. And the Collas are not going to go lightly. There's actually going to be a very long string of battles that stretches for several years. There's going to be really big sieges involved where Pachacuti tries to cut off and restrict food flow to some of these big cities. Eventually, though, he's going to subdue the Coya and bring them all into the larger Incan Empire. And then he's going to kind of rest on his laurels a bit. And why not, right? The guy just added 2 different kingdoms to his father's kingdom and became an emperor. That's a pretty big accomplishment. I think that's enough for for one day, right? But what's remarkable is that there are a pretty substantial amount of archaeologists that believe that this city that we're looking at right here summoned the hat. Okay, I guess I need to do the hat before we do this picture then, because this was going to be a bit of a spill. Okay, let me go over to this. So, the hat has been summoned by Jim Bob 422. What shall I tell you? So if you summon the adventure hat, what ends up happening is I tell a story about something that I've done on a trip. So, what shall I describe? And you get to pick. Or you can just tell a random story, and that's fine with me too. You're going to buy me an opinion hat? Don't leave me hanging here, Jim Bob. You summoned the hat. You knew what you were getting into. Or you might not have known what you were getting into. You just clicked the button because it was fun, which is fine with me. I could tell lots of fun stories. I've been to lots of places. An embarrassing story. Oh, I've got a great one for you. First one that comes to mind. Speaking of Native American mounds, when my wife and I were dating, one of the things that I wanted to do was take her over to a city and region in Mississippi called Natchez. It's on the Mississippi River. It's one of the oldest cities in Mississippi. It's one of the oldest habitated places in the region. And at that place, there's a Native American mound called Emerald Mound. It's the second largest Native American mound in the continental United States. It is it's about 60 feet tall, so it's the height of about a 6-story building. And we were on top of it walking around. The top of Emerald Mound is roughly the same amount of space as about 3.5 or 4 football fields. So it's huge on the top. And I got up to the top, and then I realized that I had to go to the bathroom. And the site itself is owned by the state of Mississippi, but it's not like on some sort of nature trail or anything like that. It's just you kind of drive down in the middle of nowhere, and then there it is. So there aren't facilities there. And I thought, I'll just go down the side of the mound, and I'll go into the wood line, and I'll go use the restroom. Because I didn't want to go on top of the mound. It seemed somehow insulting for me. But here's the thing. It was fairly early in the morning, because you want to get there when it's early so that you can catch the sunrise, because the sun rises over certain points of the mound depending on what time of the year it is. It's really cool. Also, it was really hot, so you don't want to be there, middle of the day. And I was wearing flip-flops. So we were on the top of the mound. It's very steep. It's about 60 feet up. I'm wearing flip-flops, and the ground is dewy. And I decide I'm going to go down the back side of the mound, which is actually the steepest part of it. So I start kind of trekking down the mound. And I notice that I'm picking up speed. And I noticed about a third of the way down that I wasn't walking down the mound anymore. I was kind of hurtling down the mound. And then about 2/3 of the way down the mound, I noticed that I was rolling down the mound, and I watched my flip-flops fly off my feet one way this way, one way that way. Great decisions. So I roll all the way down the mound, and the greatest part of the story is I rolled in such a way so that as I was rotating, because of the steepness of the mound, I rotated to the point where my feet perfectly landed flat on the ground. And then I did this. Like I was some sort of international gymnast competing in downhill mounding or something like that. Oh man. Absolutely embarrassing. We weren't even engaged at the time. We were just dating. So this was like, this was super embarrassing. Super embarrassing. But she still continued to go out with me. We are now married. It's been a great time. But it was... Hey, did you hear about that time that Shane fell down the Native American mound? Oh, that was the moment she fell in love. If that guy can fall down a mound half as well as he can like me, that dude's going to be a keeper. Oh, man. I love you all. Can you confirm that? Oh, great times. Great times in history. I fell in love. Good one. Alrighty. Okay, so let's go back to our images here. That was a good laugh. I appreciate the summoning of the adventure hat. It's always a fun time. I needed to say keep him out of trouble. Yes, you have done that. You are the part of my brain that functions to tell me to stop when my normal brain says, "Oh, that'll be great." I am not Scottish. My family comes from Ireland on my dad's side, by the way of Vikings, and England on my mom's side by the way of Vikings. So I am effectively a Norman, if you take the drift of that. It is probably exhausting keeping up with me. I'm a big child. So she's getting plenary indulgence for just spending time with me. Oh, good times. Let's talk about Machu Picchu and get off of the embarrassing Shane moments. No, for real though, I have no actual shame. Do I listen to a lot of metal? I like metal music. Anyway, so this is Machu Picchu, and if you know anything about the Inca people, you've probably at least seen a picture of this or heard of this city. It is considered by many archaeologists to actually sort of be the getaway for Pachacuti. It's theorized that he built this as sort of a mountain respite to spend time away from all of the craziness. And this is a fairly large city. It would have had several thousand people living in the area. But it's sort of one of the more enduring images of Incan civilization. A very beautiful place. I've never been there. My sister has. I'm very jealous of her for that. But my friend Mac in a lab coat, who's been to Peru like 18 bajillion times, hasn't been there either. So he keeps saying he's saving all of these historical things for when we go together. I think it's just because he likes to stay in civilization, where they have fire-breathing showers. The fire-breathing showers thing is a whole other story that I will let Mac in a lab coat share with whomever he wants in his time. Yeah, the Picchu. Yeah. Thank you for keeping me honest on that. Machu Picchu. Thanks, Gene. Okay, so Pachacuti, pretty big guy, pretty important guy. One of the more important leaders. But of course, he gets old and dies. That's what happens when you get old. Topa, Inca, Yup. Type correctly. Topa Inca Yupanqui, whose name means something like great administrator. So, oh no, I have been out on a banana boat. I miss the hot showers, even the ones that catch on fire. The Picts, so they were Celts. Joking. Okay. Pictuing. Oh, yeah, well, there we go. I did not know the actual definition of that, Gene. I appreciate that. Though it does make sense that that might be something that Pachacuti would name it, because the dude is pretty full of himself. I mean, but he was a pretty big emperor, though, so I guess you kind of get to... you get to be that, if you want to. So, okay. Who is this guy? Well, he is the son of Pachacuti. He is going to be a really important stabilizing figure. So the thing about expansion and rapid expansion is that some rulers are just really good at strategy and warfare like Pachacuti was, but to expand an empire and to hold on to an empire are way different things, right? And this is what Topa is really going to be great at. He is an administrator, but he's going to take over after his father. He's actually going to be involved in a lot of the expansion work with his father, leading armies. He's going to be responsible for conquering another kingdom called the Quipu, which are... Ooh, I'm missing pictures. Should have just held on with the pictures and gone that way. Okay, so here's Machu Picchu again. So this is not clearly a native Incan image. This is an image of Topa that was drawn by a Spanish person who was taking a lot of notes. This is supposed to represent Topa in life. The picture itself is done in a folio. It's not particularly well preserved, so there's lots of pieces that are kind of falling off, and the line art's not so great. But so the concept here is one of the things that the Spanish wanted to do was, I guess, preserve some of the history of these people, so they wrote a little bit about each ruler. This is one of the only images that I could find that would be even close to the time that this guy lived. So that's probably not very much what he looked like. One of the things, though, that you can see here a little bit is the Inca interest in sort of patterns, especially these sort of geometric patterns that repeat quite a bit. This is going to be a fairly common thing that you see in a lot of native dress, especially with very bright colors woven. So there's Topa, and he's going to fight against these people. So if we're looking here, again, this is Ecuador, here is Peru. This region was a kingdom called the Quipu, and they're going to be the targets of some expansion under the beginning of Topa's reign, and he's going to bring them into the larger part of the empire. And this is going to be a pretty big moment for him, because this is going to sort of cement his validity as Pachacuti's son. So, like, look, I can follow in my dad's footsteps, right? He's also going to put down a big revolt of the Koya. He's going to be pretty brutal when they rebel. Of course, this is sort of in response to Pachacuti dying. When the guy that beats you up dies, you don't necessarily feel like you have to follow his son. You think this might be a great time to break away from the people that are domineering on you. Topa says no, goes down and beats the mess out of a lot of those people. I'm losing the chat again. Okay. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. No one remembers the name of the place, so they discovered it. Yes. What is the etymology of my last name? Irish. It's Gaelic. Mick is son of, Innis is island, so son of the island, literally. It's not Spanish. Did the Inca think that the end of the world would come in 2012? No, that's more of the Maya people, based on their long calendar. The Inca had a calendar, but it wasn't as advanced as the Maya. They kept kind of a dual calendar system. One of them followed solar patterns and one followed lunar patterns, and then they'd have to, like, I think it was the winter solstice, where the priest would have to get together and sort of rectify the calendar for the year. They couldn't predict eclipses. They usually thought that eclipses were when Inti was getting mad at them. But they did have a calendar, but it wasn't as accurate as the Maya. But the 2012 thing was a Maya thing. Interesting repeating geometric patterns. Yes. Hallucinogens. That's a big thing, especially in South America. There are lots of Native Americans in South America that participate in plant-based hallucinogens. One of the reasons cocaine is such a big thing in South America is because the Inca used to chew coca leaves, which is the sort of natural extract of cocaine. Last name is boring. It's literally an English word for a profession that I guess one of my ancestors did. Yeah, a lot of English last names are that way. How closely related were the Incas and the Mayas? They were not ethnically related, nor were they culturally in contact with each other. The Andean cultures are pretty distinct from all of the Central American cultures. They still do. Yeah, you can still go buy coca leaves in big bulk. And I mean, you'd have to chew like a half gallon of them to get an actual buds. It's more like drinking a cup of coffee in the morning. Yeah, so baskets of dry cocoa leaves for tourists in the Cusco airport take a few. Yeah. It's not like you're going to go down there and chew on a bunch of leaves and get high. Cocaine is highly refined out of the leaves. And there's a whole process that goes into it. So I'm not going to tell you how to make cocaine. If you're here for that, go watch Breaking Bad and do meth. No, I'm not telling you to go do meth either. Maybe I should just stop talking about drugs. Oh, man. Let's talk about Topa. So, please, nobody cut that whole thing where I just told you to go make meth. Oh, good times, right? Okay, so, again, Topa's name refers to his administrative capacity, and that's going to be where he is really, really important, because even when you're expanding, you still have to keep all of these people in line, right? You have to keep them doing their job and recognizing the power structure and organized in the right direction. And this is going to be a lot of what Topa does. He's going to institute centralized rule of law. He's going to start instituting governors that go out. He's going to be one of the first people that starts laying the groundwork for the 4 quarters or 4 sections of the Inca Empire that they're going to refer to later. He is going to be the one that really starts using the mita. Let me give you this word here. Can I hit enter? Yeah, okay, so this word in the native language is a reference to tribute. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to talk about it here, especially because Topa is going to be the one that really, really gets this stuff going. When he beat you up and brought you sort of into the kingdom, you were expected to pay yearly tribute or periodic tribute. And while this could be done in crops, and it's true that the government structure sort of collected stuff and then kind of redistributed it, the real tribute was man hours. And you would either be summoned to work on one of these big building projects, or you would be summoned to work in the military. And that was how you showed your loyalty to the Sopa Inca, and you showed up when he called you. And when you didn't do that, or you decided that you were going to kind of push back against that, he would call all the rest of the people and he would go beat the mess out of you and bring you back in line, right? So I'm losing Chad again. They still do baskets. Try coca leaves, coca. Coca leaves, smooth as. I need to figure out how to lock my chat because it keeps scrolling down on me, and I would rather leave it alone. Coca leaf smoothies from Pam. Yeah. Podcast solution just first start village Native America before spreading the rest of the world. Is that true? Yeah, lots of people did hallucinogens all over the world. It's not something that originated in South America. Hallucinogens have been around for tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. All the way back when Jimmy first decided, I'm going to eat this mushroom, and then tripped out. hallucinogens are way, way back in human history, way before civilization, way before writing, way before cities. So, yeah. Okay. Still talking about Topa and the Mitai here. Okay, so again, he's going to build a lot of fortresses that are going to be used as defensive fallback positions. He's going to, again, sort of start delineating regions of the Inca and setting up governors there. But he's actually going to meet kind of an unfortunate end. He had a son who he had initially designated the heir. And he figured out over the course of his life, I don't think this kid is I don't think this kid's the right ruler. So at a particular period of time, he decided, I'm going to go with the second son. And the first son's mother got so mad that her son wasn't going to get to be king that she poisoned Topa, and he died. And that's going to be the end of him. Now, that's not really a cool thing, right? You don't poison your husband. It was okay, by the way, for the upper level people, the nobles in the Inca Empire, to be polygamous. If you were a lower level kind of worker person, you weren't supposed to have more than one wife. Now, his son that was chosen, the second son, the poison for Topa, yeah. So Huayna Capac is going to be the son that takes over. He's actually going to put to death his brother, who was the first selection, and his brother's mother, who he wasn't related to. So he kills his half-brother and that woman's wife, and he goes, nope, I'm going to rule. This is going to be me. But it's important that he doesn't really learn a lesson here. And that lesson is, when you have lots of wives and you have lots of sons, it can come back to bite you in the end. And that's an important lesson for us to remember when we're talking about Huayna Capac. Because, well, he gets into some trouble. Yeah, we'll talk about... Okay, I guess I can do that now. I don't necessarily have a set-aside part about the war stuff. They are mostly going to be using stuff that is either natural weapons or stone weapons. You see occasional metal weapons. Most of the metal work that they do is in gold and silver and precious metals. You do see occasional stuff that is weapons in metal, but they're usually going to have hardened leather, use a lot of that. They also use wooden plates, especially in their helmets. They use bone quite a bit. Weapons are stone points, lots of javelins, and atlatls for faster javelin throwing. They fought in pretty big organized groups, not necessarily organized units, so we're not talking about like a phalanx or anything like that, but with tactics and strategy and generals on the field. How many big cities did they have and what kind of state organization? Yeah, so there are, at the time of like if we're talking about Huayna Capac, there were probably 20 or so cities that had populations over 20,000 people. It's a big, big region. The problem, though, is that they're not really close. They're very, very spread out. And part of this is, again, because of the troubles that they run into trying to create surplus food. And the emperor is going to be in charge of collecting a lot of that food, and his governors especially, and making certain that the more secluded cities are going to be provided for. I feel more like more wives equals more trouble is a lesson learned from approximately every ruler in history. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. All right, so let's look at Huayna Capac here. Images. So again, that's the Chimu kingdom that was conquered by his father. So this is another representation of Huayna Capac from the Spanish, from the same folio as you saw the pictures of the earlier stuff. Went too far. So there he is, similar looking, not quite the same. He's got a different chin. Anyway. I read that the Incas developed some bronze alloys, including some that were very hard that weren't developed anywhere else. Yeah, so they had metal and they worked metal, but it was pretty rare. You didn't see a lot of that happening, and usually the really, really great metal weapons were reserved for leadership or elite soldiers. So the common Incan soldier was probably going to be fighting with a spear, a club, with some wooden or very hardened leather armor. But yeah, there are some really cool looking stuff that you can find small examples of, not necessarily widespread stuff. The Bronze Age. Okay, so first off, let's be careful and not address people as buddy. Let's try to be polite here, and I don't know if we're coming across that way, but again, and we've talked about this before, if we're looking at the timeline of people, just because somebody did it first doesn't mean they did it better. And just because other people didn't do it at the same time doesn't mean that they're lesser or anything like that. You like the cut of his jib. It's a cool looking guy, Huayna Capac. So who is this guy? Well, he's going to be kind of the last big expander. And he is going to move up all the way into the northern part of Ecuador, and he's going to conquer the kingdom of Quito, which is today the capital of Ecuador. There used to be a very ancient kingdom around that. This is sort of the last sort of big hurrah of expansion of the Incan Empire. He's also going to try to expand over a little bit into the Amazon basin, but that doesn't go over so well. He's also going to expand down into the south. One of the things that Huayna Capac is especially going to do is expand the road networks. The way that the people of the Inca moved around in these mountains and through the rainforest was these really extensive, very nice sets of roads that self-drained. Some of them are still in use today. You actually drive modern vehicles over some of these roads that were built back, 1,000 plus years ago. But the road network was how they communicated and how they moved their stuff around. And because their cities were so far apart, it was really the only way to do this effectively. You had to have a way to communicate effectively across long distances if you're going to be an emperor that holds all of this area, right? The larger you get, the harder it is to make sure that you know what everybody's doing. And if you can do something like build a road network, that's going to be a giant bonus. Now, one thing that Gene referenced earlier was the trade network that the Inca built. Huayna Capac is going to be exceptionally good at establishing friendly trade relationships. Now, he goes and beats up Quito, and he brings them into the Incan Empire, and he also marries a Quito woman. And this is going to be a bit of a problem. His main wife, by the way, was his sister. This second wife from Quito is going to be part of a larger problem that happens later on. So, ba-doop-de-doo. Okie doke. So who is Huayna Capac? He's a big expander guy. He is a conqueror. He is a tactician. He is an infrastructure builder. And he has lots of kids. And these two sons are going to be a problem. He has one son with his sister, who is sort of the full-blooded Inca woman. And this full-blooded Inca son, his name is Huascar. But he has another son. And this son is half Inca, and his mother was from the Quito region. And his name is let me type his name and then I'll try to say it, because I can't type and talk at the same time. Atahualpa. And I spelled it wrong, even though I was trying to type it the right way. Atahualpa. So these are the two sons of Huayna Capac. Huascar is supposed to get the throne, and he does. But Huascar doesn't like the fact that Atahualpa was so well loved, especially up in the north where he had family ties. And Atahualpa is going to go to the north, and he's going to sort of hang out there. And people up there are really going to start kind of liking him. And this is going to be a thorn in Huascar's side. And this is what's going to start something that's called the Inca Civil War. So the Inca Civil War stretches for about 5 years, and it's going to be incredibly important both for the Inca culture and for the larger region, because this is going to be sort of the beginning of the end of the Inca, right? So Huascar and Atahualpa are going to start fighting against each other. And Huascar has a lot of the Inca on his side. He's the full-blooded heir of the last Sapa Inca. He is in a position where he's ruling Cusco. He has a majority of the people on his side. And there's a lot of people moving around at this point. So again, after Huayna Capac, the empire had hit its height. And I showed you a picture, but I backed up. So let me look at this a little bit right here, and we'll kind of look at this. So if we look right here, this little spot was originally the kingdom of Cusco. So then you have Pachacuti, who's going to add all of this. And then you have Topa, who some people will call him Tupac, which of course has completely other connotations in today's world. So I went with Topa. So Tupa Inca does several different advances, one being this big orange one here against Chimu, and then the one down here in the south pacifying the Coya. And then you have Huayna Capac adding the regions here of Quito and some of these regions here. So this is the Inca Empire at its extent, right? And this is going to be what Huascar and Atahualpa are fighting about. So this guy is Huascar. And this is a picture painted much like you would see religious paintings done at the time. This is done by the Spanish, roughly at the time of his demise. I'm kind of spoiling the story a little bit. But the issue that we have here is the imagery here is important. So this is Huascar and this is Atahualpa. So these are the two guys that are going to be duking it out for the control of the kingdom. Now, Huascar has sort of the larger reserves and the capital, but Atahualpa has strategy, and he's just pretty clearly smarter. And Huascar is going to rule for the majority of this period of time as the legitimate ruler, but Atahualpa is going to be challenging this rule. And around this time in 1531 or so, actually in 1529, but mostly by the time we get to the 1530s, you're going to see the arrival of the Spanish. And for the Inca, the Spanish could not have arrived at a worse time. The Inca had been in a civil war that was going on for years. The sides had been very brutal to each other. There had been very, very large battles with lots of people dying. It had been bloody. It had been dirty. It had been nasty. Names had been called. Like, what am I trying to say here? Captives have been killed. No quarter was given. Worse depends on which side you're looking for. Yeah. The Spanish love this, though, because the Spanish find these giant people, these giant culture that they had heard rumor of in absolute chaos, and they're going to take advantage of it. And Pizarro, Francisco Pizarro, is the guy that we're going to reference here. And did I spell that wrong? I guess I did. Francisco Pizarro. And that, of course, isn't going to go on one line unless I shrink it down. There we go. Okay. Nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition. I've missed some chat. Okay. There we are. Gene's throwing out dates. I like having Gene in the chat. I like having all of you in the chat. Everybody's welcome. Having a good time, right? Or hopefully having a good time. Anyway, so what happens in the Civil War? Where, well, eventually Atahualpa captures Huascar. And they don't see eye to eye. And eventually Huascar gets killed as a captive. Now, this is unfortunately going to be used against Atahualpa in the worst way. Because as soon as Atahualpa ascends as Sopa Inca, he only spends roughly a year on the throne before the Spanish show up in force with guns and tons of men and catch him trying to put together his empire after this giant and very brutal civil war. And in 1533, Atahualpa gets captured. And this is going to be kind of a really unfortunate tale here. Atahualpa tries to ransom himself free. There's a very famous story that he took the Spanish into a room. And by the way, the Spanish captured him by lying to him. They said they wanted to have a treaty with him, and they suckered him into a meeting and then surrounded him with guns and beat the junk out of all of his people. So there you go. So he offered to pay his ransom by taking them to this big room and saying, I'll fill this room up to the 8-foot mark here at the ceiling with gold, and I'll fill it up twice with silver if you just let me go. And the Spanish were like, I don't think you actually have that much money. I think that you're lying to us, and you'll say anything right now to get free. The thing was, Atahualpa absolutely had that much money. The Inca were fabulously wealthy. And so the Spanish decide, well, guess what? You are a murderer. You killed your brother, and we're going to put you to death because of that. Now, first off, we have to ask ourselves, what jurisdiction did the Spanish have to settle this? And the answer is, they had guns and they said so. So Atahualpa is facing this death sentence, and they tell him, we're going to burn you at the stake because you are a heretic. Speaking of Spanish Inquisition kind of stuff, right? But here's the problem. If you were an Inca, you believed that if your body was burned, it destroyed your life essence, and you would not be able to pass on into the afterlife, and you would not be able to reincarnate. If killing your brother made you a murderer, would all of us be guilty? I did not know that you had a brother, David Peterson. Well, anyway, so Atahualpa is actually really freaked out by this, and he's like, dude, you can't burn me. That is like the worst thing you could do to an Inca. And he talks with not anymore. I guess that's the only correct answer to that statement, right? So this priest actually talks to Atahualpa. I think it's actually a monk. It's not a priest. It's a monk, sorry. And says, look, if you convert to Christianity, they won't burn you at the stake. And so Atahualpa converts to Christianity and gets baptized. Now, did he mean this? Do you think he meant that? That's the question. But boy, do the Spanish jump on this. And I've got something here that I want to show you that's really important. So this is the portrait here of Atahualpa that we have. But this, now what is that? As you can tell, this is pretty clearly a European statue. This is Atahualpa. And this is a statue of him that adorns the outside of a really big Christian church, Catholic church in Madrid. Because when the Spanish find out that they had converted the emperor of one of these foreign countries, they just went buck wild with it. Conversion at gunpoint. Seems legit. There you go. But did they go with that? Absolutely they went with that. They didn't have guns in the Crusades. Spear point, sword point, but not guns. And I guess that was a technicality. I know what you're talking about. And very effective, yeah. Convert or be burned and have your eternal essence never recycle through the land of the dead. But this is the stuff that happens with a lot of the Native American cultures that the Spanish turn into. They sort of turn them into caricatures. They go, look, we're reaching these people. But what they didn't, reference was the fact that after they had converted him to Christianity, they still strangled him to death. And Atahualpa was killed by the Spanish. So, yeah, I clicked the wrong button. I'm being super pro-streamer tonight, by the way. So, with Atahualpa dead, the Spanish actually do find one of his sons, and they turn this guy into a puppet ruler. But it doesn't go so great for the Inca after this. They don't really have any sort of independence. Their empire constantly shrinks. There's also the gigantic threat of disease that had been brought over. Measles and smallpox killed millions of native people in South America, brought over by the Spanish. And the Inca Empire had already felt a lot of impact on that. There was also let's not forget that there was this big drawn-out civil war where lots of people had died and lots of infrastructure had been broken. So after Atahualpa is captured and killed, that's effectively the end of the Inca. Now, the puppet emperors do rebel. The grandson of Atahualpa starts something that is sometimes referred to as the Neo-Inca Empire, where they fled into some of these really deep hill fortresses that had been built 100 or so years prior and held out as best they could against the Spanish. But by 1572, the last of the known Inca cities falls to the Spanish. And again, this is 100% done by the use of super advanced gunpowder and blowing people up. So, unfortunately, by 1572, there's not even a remnant of the Inca Empire left. So again, if we're looking at just the span of the Inca Empire, we're looking at 1438 to 1572, which isn't even in 200 full years or 200 centuries. But there were people living in that region, again, going all the way back to 4000 BC. So the Inca, while they were sort of short-lived, were kind of the capstone of a larger Andean civilization movement that was utterly disrupted and destroyed by the Spanish when the Spanish showed up. So we can talk a little bit more about their culture, because I know there are lots of questions about like how they lived and what they did and how they did this and how they did that. And what I find most interesting, well, I don't say most interesting, what I find interesting a lot is the way that they handled their economics, which is pretty interesting. They didn't necessarily use money. So they didn't have coins, or they didn't use a system of hard equal exchange. They used a lot of bartering, and the concept of equivalent exchange was there, but it was usually set and run by the government. So the government would sort of no money. What was the point? Well, the idea was that you would trade, and this was seen. Oh, and by the way, full warning, if you read a lot about the Inca and you find stuff written about the Inca by anybody writing from about 1920 to about 1960, you're going to see this as these guys were the greatest Marxists in the world. They were not Marxists. They first off, they couldn't be Marxist because Marx was not even alive. But they're also not Marxist the way that you think Marxist. They were much more socialist than they were Marxist, and there is a difference, and we can't get into that right now. But lots of scholarship loves looking at the Inca and going, these are the greatest Marxists in the world. Look at how great. They didn't even have money. They just produced and shared. It wasn't all hunky-dory, right? The emperor is going to be in charge of both collecting, providing, and redistributing. So money is a social construct. It absolutely is, especially in the modern world where most of our modern money has no actual value in it. It had less of a social construct value when it was actually worth something. Now it's just the government tells you this piece of paper is worth something, so go spend it. And we don't even really use a lot of that anymore. Now it's all just like swipe the little card or click the little thing on Amazon, right? So there we go. Anyway, so the king is going to be in charge of this pretty big bureaucratic structure, especially through his territorial governors that keep up with supplies. They collect things. They sort of check things against records. They look at how much is being produced, and they move things around to make sure that some of these places get what they need, and they sort of make sure that everybody is living kind of on the same level. And of course, this again is all about Marxist rage. Like, look, they're all egalitarian. They weren't. There were class structures. The nobles were clearly richer than the regular people. There were slaves. Yeah. Modern money is based on the good name of the government. And is that like a shriek or is that a laugh? I don't know how to interpret that one. So we talked a little bit about family already. Marriage was usually seen as an agreement between both the man and the woman. And either could ask for a divorce. And usually what would happen if you wanted to get married was you kind of could actually have a trial period where you and this other individual decided we might be good at doing the marriage thing. And so you go live together for a little while. And then after a while, if you didn't like it, you could go, no, I just don't think that we're clicking. So best of luck. But you could actually get formally married. The only thing that would keep you from breaking up your union was having a kid. Once you had a kid, you were considered married, and it was at that point really, really a no-no to try to get a divorce. But women could also inherit property. Women's lineages were traced through their mother, and their boys' lineages were traced through their father. So your mother could pass on inheritance to you. You could also, as a woman, perform certain functions within the economy. You could conduct business deals. You could oversee moving around of goods and trading and bartering. You could be administrative capacity over a big farm. And this is another one of these things where Marxists are like, look, they're all super equal. But let's remember that the men are going to be the ones that are really in charge. This is not a truly unique egalitarian society, but it is a lot more equal than a lot of other places that we've seen in history, right? It's even more equal than some modern-day countries are now when it comes to gender relationships. The farming is, of course, going to be a big issue. We are talking about people that live in the mountains. So how do people in the mountains farm enough to handle a giant society? And the answer is terrace rows. And what we're looking at right here, we will not be crucified on a cross of gold. Oh, such a goofy speech. Anyway, this is a big section of terrace rows inside. Oh, you see here at the top, enjoy the irony of saying more or less equal than. Yeah, I know. We could have an entire discussion about how badly inequitable genders have been treated through history. I think suffice to say that men, after the advent of civilization, have had one up on women. The degree to which they have had one up on women changes from culture to culture. In the Inca world, women had it better than a lot of other places in the ancient world. So what we're looking at here is literally a mass earthwork option where these people have gone in and literally turned the side of this mountain into arable farmland. And you can see here at the front here you have channels that would be used for both moving up and down, but also for moving around water. And you see the side of this mountain being carved away, which is crazy. Now, where would all that stone go? Well, look what's sitting up here. There's a city. You need some stone, carve it out, make a terrace row, build your city out of it. Repurpose this stone, it's right there anyway. But this is what allowed the Inca people to survive. They were able to turn even some of the most inhospitable areas like the side of a mountain into arable farmland. It's Pretty cool stuff. Impressive? Yes, I believe so. Similar to terracing is done in Southeast Asia? Right. Yes, and that's important, Gene. The investment of labor. That kind of labor that it takes to carve the side of a mountain down is exactly what I was referring to when we were talking about tribute. When I decide to beat you up and make you part of my empire, and then I decide, all right, we're going to go build some terrace rows, I would put the call out to all of the people in the empire and say, you're going to send male labor. And they're going to come on the roads that we've got to this particular city, and for several seasons, we're going to build these gigantic terrace rows. Well, I don't know if they were necessarily totalitarian. The emperor could make you do stuff, but other than moving around large amounts of goods and keeping the peace, you don't see a whole lot of direct interference in sort of day-to-day life. People were allowed to keep a lot of their regional gods. Now, you were still expected to kind of participate in the larger Incan celebrations, and you were expected to learn Quechua. But you could still speak your native language. You could have your own religious ceremonies. You could even keep some of your own priesthood. So it's not like the emperors of the Inca were completely eliminating your region and sort of enforcing this top-down sort of overhaul of all of society, a la somebody like Stalin. So I don't think they were fully totalitarian, but they were definitely centralized government. Did they use any form of slavery? They did, but it wasn't slavery like we would think of slavery in the Americas. It was much more akin to temporary periods of servanthood. I don't want to say like the Romans, but because it was way different. But it was not chattel slavery like we would expect. And it wasn't helot slavery like the Spartans with all of their soldiers. It was kind of a more short-term, specific purpose kind of thing. Did human sacrifice happen? Yes. Well, that's a little bit ahead of myself. Let me switch over here. We could talk about their religion. So, in the religion of the Inca people, there was a pretty big pantheon. We've already mentioned Inti, the sun god, who was sort of directly tied to the Sopa Inca, the king. There's also Viracocha, who is the creator god. That was the dude that sort of came out of Lake Titicaca and then created space and time and all that cool stuff. There are lots of other gods out there. Also, lots of really neat mythology. One of the things that the Spanish did was write down a lot of the myths. So we do have quite a few really interesting myths of the Inca people. I don't want to spoil them all for you. I'd love to hear you all go say, hey, I looked that stuff up, and they're actually pretty cool. They did do sacrifice of humans to the gods, especially around certain times of the year, certain calendar festivals, stuff like solstices and things of that nature. It wasn't completely uncommon. We're not talking about the same level as the Maya or the later Aztec, but it wasn't uncommon for you to do a sacrifice before some like big military venture or something of that nature to ensure that the gods were on your side. And they also sacrificed children. This is an interesting concept. Even in civilizations where you see human sacrifice being a pretty comfortable thing, you don't always see children sacrifices, because sacrificing a child is something special. And the Inca pretty clearly did sacrifice children, but it was usually reserved for when they thought something really, really bad had gone wrong. Especially things like solar eclipses. They pretty clearly viewed solar eclipses as Inti getting very, very angry with them and hiding his face from them. So this was a sign of the crazy wrath of the gods about to rain down upon you. It's important to remember that their calendar was not sophisticated enough that they could predict these things. So to them, it happened at random periods of time. And you would see children being sacrificed to appease Inti and show that they were for real sad. So Inca did quite a bit of human sacrifice, but I don't think we could put them on the same level as the Aztec, who were just super big on that stuff. Signs of social and cultural decay, maybe the Spanish were symptoms, not the inner cause of their collapse. Well, I mean, we have children being sacrificed in all sorts of cultures all over the place, right? Especially for, big ventures. You see people that are going to go off to war and they kill their kids. It happens. So, all right. So this brings us around to the actual title tonight, which is that Quipu that you do so well. So what we're looking at here is actually a Quipo, the plural being Quipu. And this is actually the Incan version of communication. And each one of these little strands here has a particular color, a particular fiber, and a particular pattern of knots. There are other examples of these, by the way, if you Google Quipu on Google. Well, this was one of the ways that the Inca communicated, especially keeping records and taking stock. The thing is, because these are made out of very decaying and decayable materials, we don't have a lot of these. There are only a few examples that we have, and because the Inca civilization was pretty successfully destroyed by the Spanish, we don't fully understand how to interpret these. But we know that the location, well, I should say we don't know, we suspect. Let me be clear here. We suspect that the number of knots, the distance between knots, the size of the knot, the type of the knot, the type of string, the fabric of the string, and the color all played into some form of important data that they were trying to convey. There are also pieces of pottery that have patterns similar to these on them, so it's suspected that they actually used pottery as well as a form of written communication. But this is their version of writing. We don't know what it means. There have been several people that have tried to sort of crack this kind of stuff. People applying computer algorithms to translate this kind of stuff and get us a better idea of what these Quipu actually were. The word, by the way, is Quipu. The singular is Quipo. With an O. I didn't get where is the writing. The knot pattern and structure and spacing and type is a visual encoding of data, words, numbers, and values. We're not sure exactly how to translate these yet because we don't have a lot of instances. We don't have a lot of relics that we can use to interpret, and the patterns are different by kind of regional variance a little bit. So we know what they were. We know more or less what they were used for, but we can't crack what they mean yet. So interesting stuff. So while they don't have what we would call a syllabic or an alphabet or anything like that kind of writing structure, they did have ways to encode data and pass that around and interpret that. So pretty cool stuff there. All right, so I'm going to ask one more time. Has anybody got the Quipu reference here? Do that Quipu that you do so well. Has anybody got that cultural reference? Anybody? I really feel like I whiffed on this one. Not I. All right, well, there's a song, and I would play it, but again, I think that my computer might crash if I start trying to play something. The original lyric is that voodoo that you do so well, and it's from a Frank Sinatra song. So if you want to go listen to the song, it's called You Do Something to Me. So I thought, oh yeah, see, there we go. David Peterson got it. Okay, thank you, David. I am not speaking into the wind. The Inca have hieroglyphics. Well, they had symbols, and they had pictograms, but whether or not it broke all the way over into full hieroglyphics is in a lot of debate. Hey, Cave Geek, how's it going, man? Is there something more that we're supposed to get? I'm not sure. Well, no, it's just... and now David is singing the song. All right, so let me give a shout out here, which is clearly not going to work. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Cave Geek Art. There we go. Cool. And it didn't work. Man, I've got to fix that. Streamlabs is janking up on me. It's being a bit persnickety. Anyway, Cave Geek Art, pretty cool guy. Does really neat primitive map making. But does so with maps that are from the fictional realm. I don't know if he's... I haven't actually... and there is a Blazing Saddles reference. Yes, Kelly, there is. Because your granddad was... Okay, your granddad was... Okay, so maybe I wasn't totally whiffing with that. Anyway, so Cave Geek Art does really cool map work with burning leather on buckskin stuff, with paint, really cool stuff. Did a really big Breath of the Wild map. Has also done a Skyrim map that I've seen. Also occasionally plays video games. He's been playing Shadow of Mordor lately. It's actually, yeah, so Cole Porter was the guy that originally wrote the song back in like the 1920s. So go check out Cave Geek, and if you haven't given him a follow, throw him a follow. Pretty cool guy. So, alrighty. That actually kind of wraps up my discussion on the Inca. Do we have any questions from the gallery, or does anybody want to throw some points my way and make me do random historical stuff? Your Sinatra language is severely limited. That's okay, man. Don't worry about it. I'll try to pick something for Thursday's channel that's within the last couple of decades. I do really like me some old music, though. So while I'm kind of spitballing here, while people turn in channel points if you want to, let's slip the puppy of war. I don't actually know where the puppy is. Hold on just a second. I've been told by my wife that the puppy is outside. So we'll have to summon the puppy from outside. Random history fact. I'll give you a random history fact about Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe is friggin' awesome. Was built somewhere around the 10,000 year ago mark. Completely upended our concept of what we know about things like organized, structured work prior to civilization. If I can try, I mean, I'll give a shot here. I have pictures from when I went to Göbekli Tepe. I was there back in 2016. I hear the puppy. Kaylee, come here. You have been summoned. Come on. Come on. Hey, come here. Come here. You want to come over this way? Come on. She's under the table now. She has her chicken and she's greeting me. Hey, come here. Come and see me. Hey, come here. Come up here. Hey, no. Come right here. Come here. Oh, you big lummox. Raw. There we go. There's the puppy. She wants her chicken so badly. There's the puppy. Want to give me sugars? Give me sugars? No. She wants her chicken. Her daggum chicken. That was the thing squeaking, by the way, in a previous stream. She loves that. Puppy side eye again. No, I think she actually just was more interested in playing with the chicken than being on stream. She's getting a bit spoiled with her fame. Man, I'm losing myself. Where are my pictures? Aha. Now, the ultimate question is whether or not Stream is going to show these pictures if I open them. Of course not. Oh well. I have pictures from when I've been to Göbekli Tepe. Yeah, I know. It's Pro Streamer. OBS will only let me open one image at a time for whatever reason, and when I try to open multiple things, it goes and poops out on me. Yeah. It's actually under a big big metal structure that keeps a lot of the light out and actually makes it pretty hard to see. When I was there in 2016, they were shutting it down. I was there the last day that it was open. And the goal was to tear down the existing big honkin' ugly metal structure and put something in with skylights that would let actual sunlight come through so that you could see what's going on. And also build some more or some less obstructive supports to hold up some of the larger T-pillars. How much older than is Göbekli Tepe from Stonehenge? Lots. Göbekli Tepe is one of the oldest man-made things that we've ever seen, and the thing that really distinguishes it from Stonehenge is just the level of skill that was used to put it together. It's pretty crazy. The amount of structure and the skill that was involved in the carving it blows away all of our concepts of how old stuff actually is. I really wish I could get my pictures to work. I don't think that there's any way for me to really get a good go at it without shutting everything down and bringing everything back up. Did I miss anything else? I got a puppy summoned. We got the puppy showed up. I got a random history fact. We gave several facts about history. So Göbekli Tepe is constructed pretty close to about 10,000 so 10,000 years ago is about 8,000 BC, right? And Stonehenge is about 3,000 BC. So Göbekli Tepe is about 5,000 years older than Stonehenge, which is kind of crazy, especially when we're considering that these people were not living in cities. Does this mean that the hunter-gatherer stage ended way earlier than we thought? See, that's the question. We really don't know. There's not any evidence of permanent habitation at Göbekli Tepe. We just know that there are a whole bunch of circles. There are about 9 or 10 of them that are excavated now, but ground-penetrating radar has showed that there might be as many as 30 that are unexcavated. All over the top of this hill, there aren't signs of habitation. There are signs of human sacrifice and animal sacrifice. The kind of working model is that this was a place where a lot of people showed up at certain times of the year and they built a whole bunch of stuff and then scattered out during the rest of the year. So they're still nomadic during this period of time. They're not living in organized cities or villages. We don't even see the earliest of those for probably another 2,000 or 3,000 years after Göbekli Tepe was built and then buried. See, that's another crazy thing about it. It is pretty evident that at a certain period of time, the ancient people that built Göbekli Tepe showed back up and then buried the thing again. Like the whole thing, filled in all the pits. Crazy stuff. It blows all of our minds. One of the coolest places that I've ever been to in my life. I really wish I could show pictures. I'm sorry that I can't. There any script or symbolic carving? No script. Lots of animal pictures though. And the animals are done in relief, which is even harder than carving them into the stone. Also human elements in relief. One of the big T-pillars has arms and fingers and a belt and a loincloth. Several other ones have human-like features. Others show pictures of birds, dogs, monkeys, animals that didn't live in the area, showing that these people had contact with people from a long way away. Göbekli Tepe is bizarre. That actually might be an interesting viewer request topic. I have a request for you, Shane. What is your top 3 places on Earth to visit? Like if... Okay, so I'm going to have to ask for some clarification, Superb. Do you mean places that I've been to and that I've enjoyed, or places that I want to go? What period of history is 10,000 BC? That would be Mesolithic. We hadn't even really hit Neolithic yet. Places that I want to go. Cave Geek, shoot me a whisper with your email address, and I'd be happy to email you some pictures. It's good to see you, though. Take it easy. Thanks for dropping by. Places that I want to go. Okay, now I'm going to have to refine that a little bit more. Do you mean places that I can get to safely, or just if aliens showed up and took away all of the crazy people that are shooting at each other, and I could go anywhere that I wanted to unadulterated? Because those lists are different. Yeah, I've been to Petra. Petra's great. I love Petra. And you could go to Jordan right now. Jordan is actually a very, very safe country. Jordan gets a bad rap because it's surrounded by crazy people. And I don't mean that like to denigrate the entire populations of all of those countries. But if you look at Iraq and Lebanon and Syria and the West Bank of Israel, there are active radicalist groups killing people there. And that's the crazy elements that I don't like. I would love to go to Iraq. Let's go with the aliens one. So if I could go anywhere that I wanted to, I would love to go to Iran. Iran is the heartland for the Sassanid, Persian, and Parthian empires, which are some of my favorite empires to study in the ancient world. I love the Sassanid Persians. They were so cool. I would love to go to Iran. I cannot go to Iran right now. I'd love to go to Egypt. And that's a place that I cannot go to right now because it's just too crazy. And I would love to spend about 2 to 3 months in northern Syria wandering around looking for the capital of the Mitanni Empire, Washukani, because I have a gut feeling that I know roughly where it is. But that's me being pompous. So Iran, Egypt, and Syria. Would love to go there. Hawaii and Japan, nice. If I had a time machine, when would I go? Oh, that's a good one. When would I go? That's hard to answer. Would I be able to come back, or is it just a one-way thing? I can't change history. So just before the last election isn't a good answer. Back 4 years and warn everybody. If I had to go to an ancient culture and feel like I could fit in, I would probably go back to Rome in the 1st century BC or AD. That's the period of time that I know the most about. I did most of my graduate studies of that region of time. I know a lot about the culture. I feel like I would be goofy looking, but I could probably pass as an odd Roman. I know enough of the Latin to get by. I know enough of the lay of the land to understand things and not get immediately killed. And it would just be really cool to hang out with Augustus. That would be really cool. Neanderthals are great, man. Neanderthals are great. We were warned. Yeah, we were. We just didn't pay attention to it. I would love to go hang out with the Neanderthals. That'd be really cool. I think that the evidence coming out about them being a lot more advanced than initially thought is absolutely fascinating. Especially the stuff that came out recently, back during the middle of the crazy COVID stuff, where there's a dig, I believe, in Spain that suggested that Neanderthals had actually figured out how to make rope, which is a huge technological invention. And the fact that they almost certainly had religion in some sort, burying their dead, concepts of afterlife. I think that would be really cool to hang out with. What about when you realize your pronunciation of Latin is totally off? I could pretend that I had some sort of regional dialect. And that's a perfectly logical point. We don't completely know how archaic Latin was pronounced. That's a fair point, KP. Fair point. All right, ladies and gents. Any other requests, comments, questions, random thoughts, bad puns, dad jokes, mom jokes, anything of that nature? Oh, because we've got to do a poll. And we've got to decide what we're going to do for our next viewer request episode. The Mongols. Galanuva, I'll let you know, that was on the request last time and it got 0 votes. But it's still there. We do need... okay, random fact about Africa. Oh, another place that I'd love to go in Africa is South Africa, especially Zimbabwe. The remnants of Great Zimbabwe, the culture are really, really amazing. They built enormous walls around their city in a world that didn't have a lot of really good access to lumber or to easily cut stone, yet still have giant walls. Really impressive stuff. Love to go to Chaco Canyon. Love to go to Yemen and Oman. Only because you weren't here. Okay, so let me manage the poll. So, new poll. So Inca has come off because we've covered that. And we will keep the existing ones, but I think this might be the last round we keep the existing ones because we haven't reached critical mass. We are going to add leprosy. Which was a suggestion from Superbia last week as a viewer request episode. So we're going to add leprosy as a topic, and we're going to keep our other 3. And we're going to set this to 2 minutes. 2 minutes Turkish. Anybody got that one? And here we go. Okay, I have to... I missed something. Our last cousins. Latin pronunciation off. Oh, the Khmer Kingdom. Oh, man. I'm sorry, Brittany. I completely missed that before I said that. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Oh, we're covering the collapse of the Bronze Age. That one's coming up. All right, everybody, make sure you get in your votes. Leprosy's out ahead, but Mongols in a close second. Punic Wars, Greco-Persian Wars on the way. Mongols making a surge. See you later, Gene. If you have not voted, it is closing down time. Looks like leprosy is gonna win out. And it looks like leprosy wins. Leprosy in the ancient world. Wow. This is a fun topic. I don't even really know how to fully cover that. It's brand new but coming out. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Because Mongols came in pretty close as a second, I think that we're going to hold on to Mongols. Punic Wars and Greco-Persian Wars have not gained a lot of traction. Last time they got 1 vote and 2 votes respectfully. So I think we'll do leprosy next time, but we'll hold on to Mongols. But here's the thing. It is my wife's birthday. Happy birthday, my dearest. And she did ask very, very nicely, and I am beholden. And we haven't really done anything in Southeast Asia, so we will do leprosy next. And then we will go ahead and we'll do leprosy next week. So usually we would take next week off from viewer request, but we'll go ahead and do leprosy next week. And then the following week, we will do the Khmer Kingdom from Cambodia for my loving wife, because I really like them too, and I think that the fix is in. Well, David, on your birthday, we might cover Independence Day or something like that, right? So, and we might even turn that into a thing. If you are a good enough of a regular and you've been here for quite some time, we might even do birthday gifts. I don't know if we'll do that yet. Maybe we'll maybe I'll make some sort of channel point thing that you can use to request in a specific topic. Actually, I think I'm going to have to work on that a little bit. I don't want it to seem like I'm being favoritist to my wife, but honestly, she's my favorite person, so I'm going to be favoritist to my wife. So you're saying in 8 months' time? No, Galanuva. What I'm saying is that after next week, when we do leprosy in the ancient world, yours will be a clear runner for the next actually selected one. Freaking autocorrect. I don't know what happened here. I support that favoritism. And let's not forget that we will eventually move on through history, and we will eventually come to the Mongols. We'll get there. We will get there. Now, they're pretty far into the AD period, so they're several thousand years away from what we're covering. But I promise you that I'm actually, and let me be clear, I'm not upset about any of these suggestions. I love all of this stuff. I'm quite excited to talk about history of any sort. And I really do like the Mongols. I was very tickled to see that show up. I don't want you to feel like you're being left out or anybody's being singled out or anything like that. I like the back and forth. So we'll do 3 viewer requests in a row, which means I need to get on my horse. If you are a Mongol stream, it will be a very harsh topic. They did not do things nicely, that's for sure. They were pretty brutal, and they beat up a lot of people, and they were not so nice. Lots of murder and rape and pillaging. There's a reason why the Mongols were the bad guys of Europe for hundreds of years. All right, so let's see who we can raid. Peruvian beside me wants to know if you've heard of the Inca myth with the golden blood. Yeah, so according... well, let me think. There is a myth that blood of Inti, the sun god, was actually the element gold. So that when Inti was wounded and bled onto the earth, this is how the earth got populated with gold. And it's another reason why lots of images of Inti are made out of gold. Is that the myth that your friend is referring to? It gets interesting talking about a Mongol horde in this world. Yeah. But they had such fancy robes. Yeah. Yes, but it was also a joke. I mean, I got the joke, but you know how I get sometimes where I have to like do the history thing first and then giggle afterwards. I've forgot to do the teachery thing first, and then I can do the goofy haha thing. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Shane just nerd killed that joke. I have a problem nerd killing lots of stuff. I'm a lot like that too. Yeah. Okay. So we can do a raid if you